there, it's Jackie, and this is the Natural Healing Reel. Today, my guest, Susanne Meier Briggs, is here to share with us her book and story of becoming your own medicine, how she healed herself through PTSD and traumas, going through incredible amounts of pain, or all kinds of journeys that are pretty incredible. So welcome to the Natural Healing Reel, Susanne.
Hi, Jackie. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the introduction.
Thanks. I appreciate it. So you are the founder of Become Your Own Medicine. You've lived all over the world, which is really, I'm kind of jealous about that.
I'm not sure you have to be.
But definitely, I think that really rounds a person out when they can have the experience of how the other parts of the world are living, right? Being with.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. So you're a stress illness recovery practitioner, a coach, a corporate executive in the financial industry, a clinical nutritionist, a yoga instructor, and a passionate Western horse rider. Good for you. Let's talk about, I don't know, how all of those things are totally amazing, first of all, and you're integrating all of those knowledges and wisdom that you've gained through this to help share and heal others as you've healed yourself through chronic pain, right?
Right.
Share with.
All right. So as you mentioned, I lived all over the world, which is actually, as we will see as the story unfolds, maybe also part of the problem of chronic pain. So just to share my chronic pain story, as a child, I'm just going to give a list of all the pains I had in my life. It started actually when I was a child with growing pains. And then as a teenager, I started having migraines, ocular migraines. I couldn't see anything anymore. When I was 16, I got my period. I thought it was hormone related. I actually couldn't speak anymore sometimes when I had my migraine. It was really debilitating. I had it like once a month, and later I got back pain. And then I moved to the US. I was raised in Switzerland, and then I went to the US. Then I got knee pain. I got strange neurological pains on the right side of my body. I had eye pain. And of course, I always went to doctors, and they didn't know what to do with me because I was in panic mode because my pains would be pretty severe, like the pain I had behind my eye. I was an emergency, I don't know how many times. And then later in my 20s, I got IBS, and I ended up in the emergency room also several times. And they just didn't know what to do with me. And they couldn't really find anything wrong, right? They couldn't find a structural problem or anything like that. I basically always left with a clean bill of health, which was really annoying to me because it would have been easier had they given me a diagnosis. And of course, I had the diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome, but there is no magic remedy or pill for that. So you're kind of, left to your own devices, and you just have to kind of deal with it. And eventually I felt like my doctor was also giving up on me when he tried to prescribe antidepressants, which I didn't take, but that was his last resort. Okay, well, just take antidepressants and basically shut up. So it went on, with ever more increasing back pain, and the migraines were still there. The gastrointestinal issues got worse. I had, at the same time, I had a lot of traumatic experiences in my life, or just, let's say, they were not all traumatic. They were not all with a big T. Some of them with a small T, but also, a lot of moves, a lot of a loss. I lost my dad when I was 16 years ago now. I moved between countries, as we already alluded to. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life that was fairly intense. And then in 2004, I went to Sri Lanka for the UN and a Swiss agency as well. And I was involved in an act of war there. I mean, I was just basically wrong place, wrong time. There was a mine that went off, a Claymore mine that went off, killed about 12 people. We were in the middle of it. And then there was a shootout between the Sri Lankan army and the Tamil Tigers, and we were kind of in the middle of it and trying to survive, right? And I did what you do in that moment. I took my purse with me. We were fleeing to a house that was standing near the road where it happened, and took my. You do crazy things in that moment. You do whatever you need, whatever you deem important to you, and whatever is necessary to survive. So I took my phone with me. I was able to call the office, and eventually they got us out. But the whole thing took like an hour and a half. So we were in this shootout for an hour and a half. And it's also kind of a spiritual moment as well. You know, I'm convinced when you have an experience like this, you know if you're going to die or not. And I knew I was going to live because I heard this voice that kept telling me, this is not your cause, you're not going to die. This is not your cause, you're not going to die. It just kept repeating. So I was convinced I wasn't going to die, but still it was super traumatic. So anyhow, we made it out alive. They eventually got us out. We went back to the office and drank a couple bottles of whiskey, smoked a million cigarettes. You don't feel anything because of the adrenaline for several days after, actually. And then eventually the trauma hits you and you get post-traumatic stress syndrome. So after that, of course, my pain situation turned to anxiety. So instead of pain, I had anxiety and panic while driving through tunnels. And I was really busy addressing this, going to doctors, going to psychiatrists and psychologists initially to get this resolved. I did have therapy after that. I found Somatic Experiencing, which is a great system put together by Dr. Peter Levine, who is kind of a trauma expert in the world. And he wrote many books about it. I did that after a lot of, Western medicine that did not work. And I turned to that, and I turned to EMDR, which kind of helped. But I still had some leftover tunnel.
Wait, what is somatic? What does that mean?
Somatic experiencing, it's like basically the belief of somatic experiencing is that if you have an animal in the wild, let's say a lion chases an impala. The impala does fight, flight, or freeze. So if the impala escapes, and it's a successful escape, it will keep running. So the stress is run out of the body. Or if it freezes, sometimes they play dead and they just lie there and the lion thinks they're dead and they leave. They will get up and they will shake. So what this does, this additional movement, is it pushes the stress that would otherwise be compressed into your body. It somatically gets rid of it. And that's what we don't do. Like if we have a traumatic incident, our rational brain kicks in. And for example, you have an accident, you immediately call the police, or you get out of the car, you ask the other person, how can we resolve this? How are you? Whatever. So you immediately do rational things when you should actually, let's say after an accident, sit there and let the body shake. Because if you do that, the body will get rid of that energy, which is post-traumatic stress syndrome or anxiety. However it will come out in your system, it gets rid of that. But being human and living in our system, we just don't know. We just forgot about that. But if we did what the reptilian brain wants to do, that's how we would act. And Peter Levine put together the system where you can, after the fact, get into the situation that caused, the trauma, and use the body to get rid of this energy. There's certain exercises that you have to do, thinking about or bringing on a situation, and then it gets out of the body, because trauma is actually, it's a physical thing. It's not, you can't talk to it. Like if you do CBT, it's not going to be very effective because it needs to get out of your body. And that's often overlooked. Yeah.
What's CBT?
Cognitive behavioral therapy. Sorry for all the acronyms. Yes. So where you do actually talk therapy with the psychology. So this is not very effective for something like that. So you really have to go at it physically. And there's like this somatic experiencing is really effective, or EMDR. I think it stands for eye movement desensitization rehabilitation, where you use the eyes. You do eye movement while you're bringing up certain scenes of the trauma, and you can process it that way. The eye movement will process the trauma, and it kind of, what it does, it disconnects the emotion, the triggering emotion, from the memory. So you can think about an event, but you're not triggered anymore. So I did these two therapies after Sri Lanka, which helped a lot, but still I had some left over. Like, I couldn't drive through tunnels. Any tunnel that was over 3 or 4 miles, I started having panic attacks. And
what was the tunnel about?
I guess my brain interpreted the tunnel as dangerous because I couldn't escape. Also, I couldn't drive. Like, after this incident, I had a hard time driving on the freeway. I needed to see a ramp. If I didn't see a ramp, I started to get panicky. So it was really, I was living in LA at that time, and in LA, you really have to drive. And to me, it was really difficult. I mean, I sometimes took surface roads from Long Beach to Pasadena, just because I couldn't get on the freeway. And so this somatic experiencing, I started doing that, I would say like 3 months or 2 months. It took me a while to find out about it after the incident. And then I practiced it for 4 weeks. And I remember my sister came to visit, and we drove to Santa Barbara, and I told her, okay, well, it's quite a drive. It's like 2.5 hours on the freeway. And I said, okay, well, I think I can drive. I've been doing this thing, and I think I can drive. And I did. I drove all the way to Santa Barbara, and I was like, wow, this is so amazing, right? It works. Didn't believe it at first because it's so simple. I can't really show you the exercises, but the exercises are so simple, right? And
there's something that you can do at home, or do you need to go to a practitioner to do the exercises to have it? Like, is that something that once you learn the exercises, it's something that you can do yourself, or is that something that you need to have somebody take you through?
I would say it depends on the person. I learned this in group therapy sessions, and I went there maybe, 4 or 5 times only. And I got the exercises there, and I just practiced them at home. But a lot of people go to see a somatic experience practitioner, and they do it with them in sessions. I'm somebody, if I learned something pretty quickly, I try to find out everything about it. I really dig in, and then I just do it myself. That's the way I work, but we're all different, right? If you need support, then a somatic experience practitioner would be fantastic. EMDR, you definitely can't do yourself. You need to do with either a psychologist or somebody that knows how to do it. So yeah. So I did these 2 things, and I eventually started driving again, more or less. And as I got over the anxiety and the driving issues, pain came back. I started to get more back pain again. And then I got insomnia, and that was horrible. I remember I was in the Maldives and diving, actually not scuba diving only. I wouldn't dive, but so we did scuba diving, my partner and and I got tinnitus, and I was convinced this is because of the salt water. I actually Googled it, and I thought, okay, it must be because of the salt water got in my ear, and I got tinnitus because of that. But I couldn't sleep anymore.
And that's the ringing of the ears, right?
Yeah.
And is that like when you have that, is that like nonstop, the ringing in the ears? Like, is that what happens there when you get, how do you say it again?
It's tinnitus or tinnitus. It's like really, it's the ringing in the ears. I mean, I didn't hear it during the daytime because I was, there's noise, you're at work, you're busy. But when you're going to bed, you're trying to sleep and everything is quiet, it would be like, oh, and I just couldn't sleep. So I started to have insomnia, and I went to see a doctor again, and it was pretty bad at the time, really. I had to take benzos and other sleep medication because I couldn't get to sleep. So then finally my doctor sent me to a sleep clinic for 3 weeks where they taught me how to sleep again with sleep deprivation, which was a really fantastic experience. I learned a lot about sleep.
I need to go there. I still have
Yes.
sleep issues.
I can recommend one. No, it was really amazing. I learned so much about sleep, which is not really the topic for today, but I think it's fascinating. For me, for example, just, maybe delving a little bit into the sleep topic, there's a big difference between sleepy and tired. If you're tired, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to sleep, but if you're sleepy, you're going to sleep. And, they hook you up with all the devices and the electrodes. And for 3 nights, I had to sleep with that stuff. And I learned that when I thought I was wide awake, I was actually in deep sleep, which was shocking to me. And because one night, I remember the first night they put these electrodes on, I thought I didn't sleep at all because it was so annoying because you have some stuff on your chest and then all over your head. And I was like, oh, it's so annoying, right? I can't sleep. And 3 hours later, I called the nurse and I said, take the stuff off. I can't sleep. And she's like, okay, fine, I take it off. And the next morning, the doctor came in and he's sitting there, he's smiling. He said, so how do you think you slept? I said, I didn't sleep at all. You put the stuff on me and it was so annoying. They had to remove it after 3 hours. And he said, you had a perfect 90-minute cycle and then you entered the next one. I said, I don't believe it. and he said, yes, I can show it to you. And he showed it to me and I had to believe it. And so he said, look, I would say 70% of the sleep issues are you making a problem, being anxious about sleep, stressing about sleep, thinking about, oh, I'm not going to be able to perform the next day, bringing all the anxiety into thinking that you're not going to sleep, etc., etc. That's what's causing, the whole problem, not the whole problem, but a lot of the problem. That really changed my whole outlook on sleep because, and then they did it like 2 more nights. And again, I thought I slept terrible, thinking, being convinced I slept terrible, but I slept like 7 hours and they proved it to me. So it was really revealing. So just as a side note, but the tinnitus got better because what they did is like they of course also worked with my nervous system. We had to do heart rate variability, a special breathing type, and heart rate variability is like it's like the scientific measure of stress. It measures the gap between your heartbeat, which is the scientific indicator for stress. So it has to be like up, down, up, down, up, down. That's when you actually have a good nervous system. And or that's when you're in like rest and repair. And so we did a lot of breathing exercises, and that kind of made my tinnitus, let's say, lighter. And so I went home and I knew better how to sleep now, and I knew more about sleep. So, okay, fine. So we go on. Now we're like 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, actually, my back pain came back, and I had herniated disc number 1 in 2019. And within a year, right before COVID, I got herniated disc number 2. And herniated disc number 2 was between L1 and L2. And it was so bad that it took me 15 minutes to get up in the morning. I had sciatica and it was horrible. It was just horrible. I had to walk with sticks. Of course, we had to all work from home back then, which kind of helped during COVID. So I could have not gone to the office, but it was terrible and it wouldn't go away. But that's when finally, after all this pains and aches and trauma and troubles, a light bulb went on. And my intuition told me, this is not physical, Susanne, what you have here. This has to have a different cause. And it was so, all of a sudden, it was really clear to me. So I started doom scrolling on Dr. Google, and I think I typed in like other causes for chronic pain or back pain or whatever. And I found a guy called Dr. John Sarno, who had a book on Amazon called Healing Back Pain. And it had like, 5,000-6,000 positive reviews. And I ordered it, I read it, and I found myself on every page. And that was the answer I knew for all my problems. So basically what he talks about is the mind-body syndrome, and that chronic pain a lot of chronic pain. They say up to 90% of chronic pain doesn't have a physical, a structural cause, but is due to suppressed emotions stemming from trauma, negative experience, or just stress. So, of course, I had a ton of trauma in my life. I mean, when I look back at 2 years old, our house burned down. So that's the first memory I actually have from this life, and you shouldn't have a memory even of what happens when you're 2 years old, but that was my first memory. So my nervous system was already kind of deranged at that, or got kind of deranged at that age, I would say. And so I definitely fit the bill for all the trauma. And the way he lays it out is we're all born with, say, like a reservoir, which is your nervous system. And let's say you go through life, we all have our wonderful childhoods where you may have some ACEs, some adverse childhood experience, and it doesn't have to be anything big, but no childhood is perfect. Even if it's perfect, it's not perfect. Mm-hmm. If we're extroverts and our parents are introverts, there is already kind of a dysregulation conflict, right? So we go through life and we fill this reservoir with suppressed emotions because of negative experiences, because we just bottle it up. We don't feel an emotion to the end. And when we don't, it ends up in this reservoir. And our system, anyhow, causes a lot of stress in general. And on top of that, we have our life events, our divorces, our accidents, moves, financial worries, children that cause stress, parents that cause stress, interpersonal relationships. I mean, so many factors, they cause stress. And at one point, that reservoir is full, meaning you have a nervous system. You're going to get a nervous system dysregulation. And the brain is part of your nervous system. So the brain will then decide, and you may agree or disagree with it, but the brain will decide what is best for you, always. And the brain may then trigger pain in a weak body part. For me, that's my digestion, my back. For you, it may be something else, maybe the neck, it may be whatever. Whatever the brain determines, that's where you get pain. Because, and this is neuroscientifically proven, an emotional injury can cause the same pain as a structural injury. It lights up the same part in the brain as they have seen with these MRIs. What are they called? NfMRIs. Where you see the movement in the brain, the flow in the brain. They have seen it lights up the same brain part. So an emotional injury and a physical injury can trigger pain equally. That's an amazing concept. We're not taught that. And the thing is, what we're also not taught is how to release suppressed emotions. Nobody teaches us that, right? There is a variety of ways. I mean, a lot of people go running or whatever, but that doesn't really do the trick. You actually have to release these emotions with other techniques, right? And
of the emotions, like they say, you have to feel it to heal it. Do you need to have the awareness first before you can heal? Like, do you need to know what it is that you're dealing with before, or if you're doing this, will it kind of come in and give you the awareness of, do you know what I mean? Like, is it?
Yeah. No, you don't need to know. But the thing is, what I have people do is just like the way I was explaining about my chronic pain story, there's also a trauma story. So if you chart out your life and you say, okay, let's get when I was 7 years old, there was an accident or whatever, or something happened, some psychological event. Okay, did you then have pain after? Usually, yes. It can be that your trauma life chart matches your pain chart. In my case, definitely. And it doesn't have to, because sometimes it just fills and fills and fills, and then bam, you get pain. And it's okay. Actually, pain is a blessing. Pain is a message from the unconscious, and the body is a representation of the unconscious. Pain is just a messenger. And actually, we should be grateful to pain because it lets us know that there's something wrong in our unconscious that needs addressing. And we don't have to know what it is. And there's actually not really a way to measure exactly, okay, this led to this, or this incident led to this pain. But as you plot out your life pain trauma chart, you can definitely see the correlations for sure. Yes. I mean,
because it's held in our cells from my understanding, right? And it just, if we're not releasing it, and then we're attracting more of the energy that we're in, and then we're getting more and more, and the body is just filled with trauma, as you're saying, right? And so you don't need to know what it is. You don't need to know what your trauma is exactly. You can do your method here, and it will help just to start releasing it. Like, I guess I always felt that you needed to kind of know what it was that what you're dealing with and why, I guess. Do you know what I mean? But you're saying, no, you don't need to know.
I mean, when we get to the solution, I mean, you're part of what we do here is actually that you jot down everything, like all the negative experiences that you ever had in your life, all the trauma, all the incidents. You're going to have a piece of paper, and you're going to make 3 sections. And the first section is 0 to 20. So your childhood, your teenage years. So everything that happened during that time, even if it's, I don't know, somebody stole your apple in kindergarten, but to you, it was a trauma. You had a reaction. It needs to be on that paper. And then from 20 onwards, like adult life, that's like all your, I don't know, divorce, financial worries, stress during university, whatever. Moves are often underestimated, parents that stress you out, husbands that stress you out. And then the third section is a little bit peculiar. That's your personality traits, because there's a lot of personality traits. For example, the perfectionist, the do-gooder, the people pleaser, the self-critic. I mean, all the different versions of the self-critics. The legalists, the self-conscious person. There's a whole list of personality types that typically, let's say, are more prone to suffer from chronic pain and chronic symptoms. And unfortunately, a lot of women have these personality traits. And it's also a fact that a lot more women have chronic pain and chronic symptoms compared to men. That's just a fact. And so the third section is really, you have to be really honest with yourself, like which personality traits cause stress. Like if you're a perfectionist, like Dr. John Sarno, the guy that wrote that book that I mentioned, how I found out about this, he said the perfectionist is probably the one personality trait that causes the most stress. Because, if you always need to do extra, you need to stay, at work late, you do extra work, and then you harbor resentment and anger because you feel like the other people are not doing their part. Or you are at home, you're the wife, you have kids, and the husband comes home late from work every night, and you take care of the kids, but you're a perfectionist, you want a harmonious relationship. But deep down, you're gonna start maybe hating your husband for being lazy, or for sitting on the couch, the children not lifting a finger. But for a long time, you don't say anything. You just eat it up. You suppress it. And that can turn into chronic pain, chronic symptoms, or chronic conditions, even beyond chronic pain. And so that's what we do. But in that, I would say, I call it almost a complete decluttering of your database. Because if you address all the issues that are going to be on your paper, you have cleaned up. And the way we do it is, maybe we're jumping the gun a little bit, but it doesn't matter. You write it all down. You take like a day or two to make that list. And then every day you take one topic, whatever jumps out, you take one topic and you expressive write for 20 minutes on the topic. Expressive writing is a little bit different than journaling. It's like, excuse my French, you let the shit out of you. So you write like, I feel, and, I hate, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I am this, I am that. You really let it out. And there's no holy cows in this. If you're angry at the husband, you let it rip. And what it does, it's kind of emptying the reservoir inch by inch, or let's say millimeter by millimeter. And so that's why you don't really need to know what led to what, because you're just cleaning up the entire basin. And yeah, there's been interesting studies on expressive writing done by a guy called James Pennebaker. He studied expressive writing in the 80s. He was a professor at Texas University, and he divided his class into 3 groups. One group did normal journaling, one group did nothing, and one group did expressive writing. And the group with expressive writing was told, okay, on 4 consecutive days, you write about the worst trauma in your life for 20 minutes. And then they fall only on just 4 days. And then they followed these people, I think, for a year. And they found out that these people had, I think it was 75% less doctor visits than the other groups. Just because you pulled the plug in the basin and the water was draining a bit out of the reservoir. And so your brain, your nervous system had less reason to go and cause pain or cause disease. So that it really works wonders. So when I first learned about that, obviously, the thing is, a lot of people just start writing, which is actually not what we want, because you really have to understand how the brain creates pain. And what I basically just explained to you, the brain creates pain when the reservoir is full. But what also happens is when you have pain, let's say you have horrible back pain, you are frustrated about it, you're angry about it, you're sad about it, whatever. And you keep focusing on it, and you keep running to doctors, you keep doom scrolling Dr. Google. The more attention that you put into the pain, the wider the pain highway the synapses in the brain is going to get. And the more pain you're going to have, and the more chronic it's going to get. We call that, it's going to be learned pain. And so you get pain because of an emotional event, and you keep the pain because you're going to create more emotions, more negative emotions around pain. So it's kind of a vicious cycle that you have to break. And we call this the pain loop. And actually, also, when you go to therapists, when you go to physical therapists or osteopaths or whatnot, every time you do that, you in fact tell your brain, I'm paying attention. I'm nurturing my pain. And the brain is like, okay, I'm giving you more pain. This is how it works. It's absolutely crazy. And
the universe just gives us more of what we're thinking and talking about, right? Because it doesn't
exactly.
bad, right or wrong. It just what we're talking and feeling. So whatever, that's what they say, fake it till you make it, right? I guess. But you have to, this is huge, because you have to be able to release this stuff. And we don't know how. Like, we've just never been given those tools in mainstream, unless you're like yourself and have, done the work and seeked out, this is huge. This is really great stuff. I'm excited about this.
Yes.
I could use some of this myself, I'll tell you.
I mean, it's changed my life. I mean, I went through 4 decades of pain. I mean, it's not that like I was always downtrodden with pain, but there was always something annoying going on. And I can't tell you the amount of supplements I swallowed in my life, or the amount of specialists and healers and psychics and you name it that I've seen. And, yoga. And this is what really got me, like in 2020, when I had my second herniated disc. I mean, I'm a yoga teacher. I mean, I meditate, right? And I had all this stuff. Yeah. So this is when I said, okay, it has to be somewhere else. It has to be. And so the healing from chronic pain really comes from immersing yourself into pain science, into the neuroscience on pain, and understanding that this pain loop can be broken. And it's not, when you're in pain, it's obviously not easy, but the solution is easy. So when I was in with my second herniated disc and I learned about it, to break the pain loop, you have to change the messaging to your brain. And the way people do it differently, but you have to send your brain messages of joy, messages of safety. And some people actually, they scream at the brain and say, okay, stop doing this or whatever, you have to, because if you know you have the mind-body syndrome, and not everything is the mind-body syndrome, but, a lot of chronic stuff is the mind-body syndrome. And there's a test you can do to be sure. And just to have this said once, really make sure that you have all the diagnostics done at the doctors. I mean, I did all the MRIs. I did the x-rays. I was living inside the doctor's office. And I really urge everybody to do that. But then, either you get a diagnosis or not, but often you don't get a solution. And I would say, even if your issue is not 100% mind-body syndrome, you will still benefit from this, because every issue has a mind-body piece attached to it, I would say. I mean, every chronic pain or chronic symptom has a part of the mind-body syndrome attached to it. And but really I tell people, get infections ruled out, get tumors ruled out, get cancer ruled out. Just really make sure that you're okay. And then when you think it can be the mind-body syndrome, and it's not always so easy to determine, then you can embark on this mission. And my advice would be, really study the neuroscience on pain. There is a number of books written by Steve Osanich, for example, by Dr. John Sarno, who I already mentioned, by Howard Schubiner. He is a doctor in Michigan, US, who's really, an expert on the mind-body syndrome. He has a clinic somewhere in Michigan where he treats patients as well. He has tremendous know-how. And really, the thing is, it's like this for most people who learn about this. They need to hear it from different people. They need to hear different angles, and they need to hear success stories from people who've healed with similar issues than they have. It helped me a lot. I mean, there is a lot of success stories on YouTube. There is a podcast as well, where you find, whatever herniated disc people who recovered. It helps you to learn that, because the neuroscience is quite logical, but since it's 180 degrees different than what Western medicine is teaching, it takes a while for people to wrap their heads around it. And when it's in your head, it's not enough. It needs to be in your heart, and it needs to be in every cell. And when in my case, I was convinced I had the mind-body syndrome, even though the MRI proved that my nerve was pressing on the disc. I could see it on the MRI. So this really 100% explained my pain. But there is studies done by Japanese researchers, and also in the US, they've taken random MRIs from people without pain. And a lot of these people, depending on the age, had bulging discs, had herniated discs, but because their reservoir was not full, they had no pain. So for me, it was a little bit difficult initially to believe that I had TMS, but I knew I had TMS because of all the other issues that I've had in my life. TMS is the mind-body syndrome. We call it TMS. When you know, then learn everything you can about it, and embark on this journey. It's mind-blowing. It's changed my life. I would say I haven't had any chronic issues or chronic pain anymore. But pain is also a lot. I mean, it's the human experience. You will always have pain. Sometimes I also wake up with a little bit of back pain. But then I ask myself, okay, what happened? Did my boss pissed me off? Did what happened? What psychological event happened? And sometimes it's not quite clear. And then I do writing. I do expressive writing. I mean, not only that, there's other stuff we do as well. We can get to that later. I do the work, as we call it. I do the work, and the pain will go away after a few days. A couple of months ago, my finger all of a sudden started hurting really bad, and my finger never hurt before. And I was like, okay, let's see. I did expressive writing. I did some other methods, and the pain went away. And had this happened, like 10 years ago, my finger would have hurt for a year. I would have seen a million doctors, psychics, you name it. But now I'm my own medicine. This is why I call, my company Become Your Own Medicine, because you really truly become your own medicine when you know this and when you have the tools. But it takes a little bit of time to delve into it, to learn about it. But it's a fascinating topic. And then you have to invest some time to treat yourself. It's 20 minutes every day for expressive writing. And then we do self-soothing, 10 minutes of self-soothing, which is, it can be meditation. It can be pranayama. I mean, really calming pranayama breath work. It can be yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is like the yoga of sleep. You can listen to a YouTube video of somebody. There's a great Canadian, actually, Ali Boothroyd. She's my favorite. She has wonderful yoga nidra videos on YouTube. So it's important to do some self-soothing after, expressive writing about traumatic incidents in your life. And then at the same time, you have to break the pain loop, and that you do with messages of safety. We call this somatic tracking, where you can lie down. Now that you know that you have TMS, right? If you know you have TMS, you studied the science, you can lie down and you can neutrally observe your pain. How does the pain feel like? Does the pain move? Does it talk to me? And you observe it with interest, non-judgmentally, without fear, without anger, without emotions. And all of a sudden, it's a completely different pain. So, and then as you go through the day, let's say if you have back pain or if you have pelvic pain or whatnot, and you feel the pain, you would send messages of safety. You tell yourself, for example, when you bend over, like when you have back pain, everybody always tells you, don't bend over, don't bend over. Bend over and tell yourself, I am safe. I am safe. And let me tell you, it took me quite a while to be able to do that. But you do what you can. It's a process. Dr. Sarno always said, motion is lotion. And it really is, right? Because you teach your brain that you're safe and that you've exposed it, because the brain also makes mistakes, right? And such a prolongation of pain is also the brain kind of in error, making the pain bigger than it should be in some instances. So you teach your brain that you're safe, you're joyous, and every time you move, your brain learns. What you avoided before, you do now, obviously with care and in time. But this guy, Steve Osanich, who wrote this book, The Great Pain Deception, it's quite a read. I think he was in bed for like 10 years with horrific back pain, could hardly move. He discovered Dr. Sarno as well, and he listened. He couldn't even hold a book, because he was in bed, so he listened to his audiobook every day. And then he just crawled out of bed, went to the golf course and started shooting golf balls. He forced himself to shoot 100 golf balls a day. And after, I think it was like 6 months, the pain went away. The brain learned after 10 years of pain that it's over now. The game is over. So it's really unlearning pain and reprocessing it. So it sounds, it's not hard. It's just mind bender if you never heard about this before. And people always say like, okay, well, that's nice what you're saying, but my pain is structural. my pain is different. Well, I thought so too, but I had the picture to prove that my pain was because of the nerve on the disc on the nerve. I mean, I had proof, and I had proof for the sciatica, but it was the mind-body syndrome.
Incredible.
It's there's cases of fibromyalgia. There's severe cases of Lyme disease even that have healed with this approach. There's cases of long COVID that have healed, because it's all long COVID is an interesting case, actually. A lot of people have healed with this because you're hearing about there is long COVID. You have COVID, you're afraid you're going to get long COVID. And if your nervous system is already partially deregulated, and then you get COVID, your brain may decide, okay, well, it's time for long COVID. I'm going to protect her from looking at the reservoir filled with all these emotions. I'm going to give her long COVID, and she's going to be busy running to doctors, doing whatever detoxes and cleanses, and she's not going to have to look in the reservoir. So this is how it works. And yeah, I mean, there's a huge list of what TMS can be. It's carpal tunnel, nerve pain, numbness, vertigo, fatigue, exhaustion, even burnout. Because what is burnout is it's also a nervous system dysregulated. Of course, it could also be because of you really have too much work, and there's other factors that can come into it as well. It can actually be physical burnout as well. But if you have emotional burnout, this I vouch to say this can definitely help. They even treated like reproductive issues with this, or all kinds of nerve pain, muscle pain, even dermatology issues like rashes. There is also hay fever, allergies. That's all. So many things are a dysregulated nervous system, a full reservoir. And the nervous system is a really, really powerful thing. It can really wreak havoc in your body if it's tense and full to the brim.
Mhm.
So yeah.
It kind of, I'm thinking about Louise Hay's work, right? Heal Your Body, Heal Your Life. And she has that one book, and I shared it with my daughter's teacher. And it was, wherever the body pain is, she tells you what that is, right? So if you're holding it in your knees, you're feeling, or your hips or your hands or your shoulder, and it'll tell you exactly what it's anger, or it's, do you know what I mean? And I think that those kind of tools are just really helpful, just to have the awareness that, okay, this is an emotional thing that I'm, dealing with, but I don't know, we're just like with all those thoughts that we're having every day that we're unaware of, that are running, that I think is such a big issue, because they're usually all negative, those subconscious thoughts.
80% are negative.
And it's going against us usually, right? But it's all to do with our traumas, or our perception of whatever happened throughout. And so this makes total sense to me, because it really is getting to the root of it, right? You're able to,
yeah. I mean, and we saw,
you're not dwelling on it, like you're not, right? Like with the talk therapy or whatever, you're telling the story, well, you relive in the story. Whereas I think this, you're just really releasing.
Yeah, you're really releasing it with the expressive writing. And well, I think, in our society, emotions are so greatly underestimated. But, we are not, how does it go? Thinking beings that feel every once in a while. We're emotional beings that think every once in a while. We'll never forget how somebody made us feel. That we will never forget. And it just shows you how powerful this is. And I mean, look at, for example, if you have to do a presentation, you instantly get a physical reaction, right? You get a queasy stomach, or if you're embarrassed, you blush. You have a physical reaction to an emotional problem. And chronic pain is just a level up, more emotions, more suppressed emotions, a stronger physical reaction. And interesting what you say about Louise Hay. I love Louise Hay. She was she was just full of love. I mean, love this woman. And yes, a lot of times you say, if a problem is a boss breathing down your neck, often these people have neck pain. There is definitely a correlation that we see with this work as well.
Old injuries popping up as well, right? And there's emotion, it's like, so I've noticed with myself, like an old injury has come back in. Okay, well, I haven't had that in my shoulder right here, right? Since 20 years, right? So what is that? Well, just looking at what happened back then when what was going on then for me seems to be kind of that same thing has reemerged. And I think that I can see that that's an emotional thing, like totally, 100%.
It's also learned, right? I mean, it can be a learned response from your brain. If you had, I think there's a story from this Vietnam veteran, and I think he was shot in the Vietnam War in his arm, if I'm not mistaken. And at that moment, a helicopter flew over him, and the sound of the helicopter was, it was kind of pain and helicopter, right? And then 20 years later, a helicopter flew over him somewhere in the US, and the pain came back in his arm. So it's also a learned response. I mean,
how is that we're storing that, right? That's the issue right here. That's the whole problem. And we don't understand that, right?
Yeah.
Now we're off to the doctors for some more medication and some more Band-Aid it's just, we just don't know.
Yeah. And it's, this is really about, getting rid of the root cause, because if not, the pain will come back with a vengeance somewhere else. And this is actually how Dr. John Sarnoff found out about this, because he was an orthopedic surgeon at NYU Medical in the 60s and the 70s. I mean, this is how old this is, and he was always wondering, like, okay, why do my patients come back with either back pain still after surgery or after physical therapy, or why do they come back with pain in a different location, but they still have pain? So that's when he started talking or inquiring with the patients, like, what else is going on in your life? And then he found out, okay, they're going through divorce, or they just got fired, or they had a horrible childhood. And that's when he started treating that with expressive writing and also pain education. Pain education is the most important. And sometimes we say, if you can actually do this without writing, like, for example, Steve Osanich never wrote a page. He just trained his brain not to inflict pain anymore. He unlearned pain by teaching the brain that it's fooling him. But that's essentially what's happening. The brain is fooling you by creating pain. And so he unlearned it.
Right there, what you're saying there, because we believe that if we have the thought in our brain that this is the truth and this is what's happening, where that is not the truth. That is something that we've heard or thought a few times that then lodged in there as a belief. And we don't understand that. And so we've got these thoughts that are coming out that we think, because we're thinking that's the way that is. And it's interesting, right? So
it's also when you get told by a specialist, a doctor, that you have fibromyalgia and you're just going to have to live with that for the rest of your life, does something to your brain. I mean, it makes it a whole lot worse. And that's why often these diagnoses are not really doing any good. But at the same time, people want a diagnosis, because then you can explain your pain. You can explain your pain at work. You can explain your pain to other people, and you have something, right? Because if you don't have anything, it's also a problem in our society. And it's accepted to have a physical problem, and it's not really accepted to have an emotional or psychological problem. You're still a mental case if you are, largely, right? Or burnout is also something that still kind of looked down upon. But if you have a physical problem, it's like, oh, good, fine, we totally understand. So that's also a factor that plays into here. And then another factor is that nowadays, doctors, they spend how long? Like 10 minutes with a patient. And in those 10 minutes, there's no care, there's no listening, there's no understanding. It's just, okay, well, here's the diagnosis, here's your pill, pick it up and, take it. You have to take it for the rest of your life. But if that alone would change and, doctors would listen to the patients and the patient would feel understood, there probably would be less pain than we have.
They're not schooled. They're just not educated in that way. And so we're not going to receive that from the medical doctor. We are going to receive that from the naturopath or the holistic approach you're going to have, where they're actually trying to find the root cause. It's a whole different care system. Unfortunately, it's not paid for. And so a lot of people believe they can't afford it, right? Well, it's this amount of money to go see that. Well, it's not covered, so I'm not going to go. Whereas you can't afford not to go, in my point of view, right? Because now if it's not addressed, it's compounding.
Yeah. I mean, it's, if with this work, I cannot tell you how much money I saved. Honestly, since I learned about this and since I've applied this, I don't have to go to see all these specialists anymore. I don't. In 4 years, my doctor, still go to doctor, I have my blood tests done, I'm still go to the gynecologist or whatever. Of course you do. But I don't have chronic issues anymore, and I don't have to see all the osteopaths and the physical therapists and the massage therapists. All that money I don't need to spend anymore. That's another factor. And it's like, so the question is really like, how long do you want to wait, right? To get to the roots, because that's where you need to go. And unfortunately, it does come with a little bit of work. But to me, and I see this with my patients as well, they tell me, okay, initially it was kind of weird sitting down and expressive writing for 20 minutes, but then it becomes a ritual. It becomes me time. It becomes something that you do every night, and you get to close the door, you get to be by yourself, and it becomes a ritual. And it's something that most people look forward to, because it's really, you can feel the effects of it. And it's not easy, because the first year I did this, I did it for 3 months. Oh, I have to say this actually. I did this for 3 months. So religiously every day after the herniated disc. And about 3 months after, I woke up one morning with 80% less pain. It was incredible. It wasn't like, okay, gradually I had less pain. It was from one day to the next, I had 80% less pain. And then it took me about 3 weeks to believe it.
That's funny.
I was like, okay, well, it's probably temporary if I move this way, that way, because I was still in this whole adoption phase, this TMS adoption phase, but it never came back. And I kept doing the work, and I got rid of the migraine. Okay, I have maybe 1 or 2 migraines a year, and I think it's largely also due to hormones. I got rid of IBS. I got rid of all the symptoms I had, and
you're not carrying it in yourself anymore. Those thoughts have changed, right? And you've put it out here, and so you're not holding that cellularly. And so as our body's repairing and rebuilding itself on a daily basis, it's able to now rebuild something new.
Yes,
that's what I hear when you say that.
And at the same time, you get to know yourself a lot better. You get to understand really what led to what. In my case, it was pretty clear. And that's what I do with patients. We really go through the individual, pain / let's say emotional history, and we plot through it, and we get to the bottom of it, and then give them the, really the education that they need, and the instructions for the other tools we have. And then they can really do this on their own. And so how do people, if they wanted to contact you and look into doing this work, what are they looking at? Like, what does that look like for somebody who's kind of, thinking about it, but sometimes we don't move forward because of the unknown. So what does it look like for somebody to move forward on that? So they can contact me on becomeyourownmedicine.co, not .com, becomeyourownmedicine.co. So what I do is I do one-to-one sessions, and sometimes I do workshops, because you can easily teach this in a group. So I have workshops with like up to 10 people. I am looking at recording a course where I really explain the neuroscience. I go into detail how exactly the nervous system causes this pain, how it dysregulates the nerve fibers, and how all that happens really physically or scientifically in the body. And I explain everything in detail in that course. It should be ready in like 2 months. And then, I give the people the tools to heal themselves, the self-soothing tools, and I call them the release tools. There is the expressive writing. There's a couple of other tools, like something called havening, that works really well, which I have to actually physically show people how that works. And so then they're equipped and they can go on this adventure, because it's really an adventure. And, I can't say, we're all individuals. We all have a different bag of goods, and you can't say how long it's going to take. I mean, in my case, it took 3 months for 80% less pain. And then I would say, a year for everything else to kind of subside. But I've seen people where they got pain-free after only reading the book by John Sarno. It has happened. We're all different. I mean, it also depends on a little bit of how much of an intense life you've had, and how much stuff you have to work through. But you can't say, I don't want to make any predictions, but I have seen, if somebody really does this work and does it religiously, and I have seen miracles. I mean, people, bedridden that have healed.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it's true. And I just hope that, I know this is not something that's going to make people rich, but I really sincerely hope that this will be spread, because I think this is the future of medicine. It's something that has been greatly overlooked. And I hope that one day psychology and physiology marry, and everybody will have access to this. Because now there is, while it's becoming more popular in the US, the rest of the world is literally, in the beginning stages of learning about this. In the UK, there's also a movement. There is SERPA, where I actually did my education. But still, I mean, it's most people never heard about this.
Yeah, so that's why we need to bring it to the mainstream, because we are these powerful beings and we have no idea how to run this machine that we are using as a vehicle for this lifetime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love this information. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. What a journey you've been on. Is there anything that you would like else to share that we might not have touched on?
Not really. I mean, I have also some free information that I send out to people who are new to this. It's available on connectbecomeyourownmedicine.co. If you go there and sign up, you get a booklet that gives you the details of the neuroscience. It's still at a high level, but I go deep enough so you understand it. So the neuroscience and also the mind-body syndrome, what it is in detail.
Yeah, and with that wisdom, that gives you the power to, to move forward, right? Because I think that if we know what we're doing and we know what we're dealing with, we're that much more powerful in creating our success. So good for you. You're a leader. Good for you.
So are you. Thank you.
Sorry that you had to endure all that, but we're in an incredible time in our journey of our evolution in the universe, aren't we? So,
well, I feel like, I had to endure all of this to be a messenger of this, because I had to wake up, I had to go through this, and I really want the world to know. And I think maybe that's what God intended me to do.
Well, look at the difference of your life, right? I mean, you're filled with love, light, joy, peace, compared to pain, anguish, sadness, right? Exhaustion.
Yes.
It's a night and day. Yeah, good for you. Yeah, I'm proud of you for doing the work, because it is work, and that it's not hard work. It's just actually taking the time for ourselves really is the work.
And I hear a lot, oh, I don't have time for this. I'm like, really? Have you looked at your smartphone counter? Like, how many hours do you spend on a smartphone per day? We have time. We have 30 minutes.
We
Most
have to
people
have
do.
time. We need to make
Yes.
time because our world is so intense and it's so filled with fear and so many things coming at us that if we don't learn these tools, if we don't learn how to help ourselves, we're in
Lost.
big trouble. We're lost. We're not going to make it. So, and we need to help each other, right? And
That's yeah, exactly. You said it. I mean, also the world, right? I mean, the world is every day filling our reservoirs. So, I mean, quite often I write about the world, the politics, the war, the whatever conundrum, right? I write about that because that fills our reservoir as well. Not just our personal trauma, but it's traumatic just to live on this planet, actually.
Well, it is. And the energies that are coming at us, I know I'm a total empath. I just feel everything. And sometimes it's not comfortable. And so, not taking that time to sit down to release whatever it is that I've picked up, it's not good. Then there's more and more, right? And so, yeah, but sometimes you just haven't found what it is that's, your thing. And so I'm really grateful that you shared how to do this and that it is really easy. And make sure we put all your information with this video so people can get a hold of you and heal pain-free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pain-free. Unlock the root cause of chronic pain.
Absolutely. Hey, Susanne, it was great chatting with you. Look forward
Thank
to
you.
the future. And love to hear about your course once you get it launched. A couple of weeks or a couple of months, you said you're going to be ready to roll with that. So yeah, come back and let us know how that's going so we can all jump in and join with you on that journey.
Definitely. Will do. Thank you very much. Blessings. Bye.
Thanks for hanging out and learning with me about how we can become the best version of ourselves. See you next time.